If the police would have just followed him and taken my police report seriously, I have said for years, I felt that I would and could have saved the girls from any trauma, if they would have looked at my report and taken me seriously.
Jeffrey Epstein survivor Alicia Arden recounting her story of abuse 28 years later as the House Oversight Committee prepares to depose former Attorney General Bill Barr tomorrow. He is the first of several former officials to be subpoenaed, and Tuesday's deadline for DOJ to hand over the Epstein files draws closer. Joining me now, Jess Michaels, an Epstein survivor assaulted in 1991 when she was just 22 years old. Today, she is the founder and driving force behind 3Joanne Sexual Assault First Aid, teaching people to know what to do when someone says they have been assaulted. Jess, thank you for joining me, and thank you so much for doing this work. First question to you is what you think of the Oversight Committee subpoenas and what you are hoping to hear from these former officials.
Firstly, thank you so much for having me, Alex. I really appreciate you including survivor voices. And what I think about the Oversight Committee subpoenas, it's missing survivor voices. Any real investigation would include survivor voices. It's also missing key players that were decision makers when poor decisions were made, like Alex Acosta.
So let's talk about one of the themes here, and it is how rich and powerful Epstein was and how he used his connections to lure and entrap young women. Here's a bit more. Let's listen to it. It's from Alicia Arden.
It was just becoming so traumatic and upsetting that I was even in that position. I'm just there to show you my portfolio and what is my call time for the photo to be in Victoria's Secrets. And that's all I wanted. And that's all I wanted. And I ran out of the room and I just felt I have to go to the police.
What goes through your mind, Jess, when you hear survivors say police did not take them seriously? And do you believe that he was, and in some ways still, is being protected?
Of course. I mean, actions speak louder than words. And what I've heard across the board from other survivors is not only their reports, but then we're even seeing it now with continued interviews that we're doing. We're speaking up. Survivors have been speaking up since Maria Farmer spoke up to the FBI back in 1994. Alicia spoke up in 1996. It has not been through a lack of speaking up by survivors.
What is that like? I mean, you're saying 1994, 1996, years like that. What is that like to think we've been speaking out this long, and yet here we are today, still unresolved?
Yeah. And I still see it on social media. Keep sharing your story. Tell everybody about it. We have. People think that because they're just seeing me talking about this now, miss that I've actually been talking about it for 4 years. It feels like a betrayal of the one job that government, law enforcement, and justice have, which is keeping us safe. And so they're doing the exact opposite. Everything is the exact opposite of keeping us safe, letting us feel safe after harm has happened.
And you've said that you've never heard the words Epstein survivor come out of the White House. How do you feel about the way the President of the United States has handled this?
It's horrifically disappointing, and it is discouraging to believe that anyone, I mean, it's Congress, it's the DOJ, it's Donald Trump, it's everyone involved with this is taking part in covering up. And if you're not centering survivor voices, then I'm just hearing a lot of noise coming out. And that's what we keep falling for, is for all of the noise.
And you mentioned DOJ. How did you feel when you saw the president's personal lawyer and current Deputy Attorney General meet with Ghislaine Maxwell?
I have one thing to say about this, and I really want people to hear me, and I want them to remember this. Ghislaine Maxwell started dating and working for Jeffrey Epstein in her late 20s and stayed working with him, I guess, through mid-30s. She molested teen girls. That one fact, and she's convicted, that one fact should have caused the key to be thrown away, because there's not a parent in this country that could empathize with a grown woman molesting teen girls. Not a single parent should be empathizing with that. That should have been enough. But it went farther, that she sold those teen girls. And so actions, like I said, speak louder than words. The president's lawyer went and spoke to this person that molested teen girls rather than actually hear survivor voices.
And she now sits in a, we'll just say, cushier place than she was before, markedly more comfortable.
She is more protected than survivors are in this moment.
That's sobering. What about this bipartisan push in Congress to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files and that press conference on Capitol Hill, which is being planned for September 3rd, with survivors in attendance? First of all, have you been invited to it? Is it something you would ever consider attending? And do you think, lending voice to survivors, it will be useful in some way?
I think it could be useful if it's backed by action. I wasn't invited to this particular event, and I think that's fine. I don't need to be speaking at every single thing. I can lend support in lots of ways. I support this event. I support all the survivors that are going to, some of them even speaking up for the very first time. And that should be centered. That their time on the mic should be centered.
So last question to you, Jess, and it's looking into the future. If you could advise this White House or the DOJ on bold steps they could take to turn the Epstein story into something of a victory for survivors, what would you advise them to do?
Put survivors first. Our impact statements are already in those files. They could be heard right now. We could be subpoenaed to speak. Not subpoenaed, but just invited to speak, actually heard by Congress. Subpoena everyone that has real responsibility and decision-making power when things have gone so colossally wrong. Subpoena everyone. Don't just choose convenient names. Subpoena everyone. Expose all of the systemic cover-ups and failures, because that's the other thing. When this whole case shut down, they showed with the actions that they are not interested in systemic change. That should scare every single American. And then we need to drive policy reform that makes this kind of betrayal and injustice impossible in the future.
Okay, Jess Michaels, you have been heard, and let's hope you've heard in a ricochet effect far greater than just here speaking with me. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.